let's get right into it. And again, it's kind of the same questions, but it's always interesting to hear. So I want you to tell us about yourself and hopefully include something that no one else knows about yourself.
Like a secret?
Well, I won't get you in trouble.
So a little bit about myself. So my name is Stuart. That's built into the name. A little play on that, I guess. Short. I am in the garage door business. That's our special connection, just in case anybody was thinking anything weird. I don't know. I'm lifelong Star Trek fan. Watched it since I can remember. Well, since I was mid-teenager. We didn't have a TV when I was growing up until I got to be mid-teenager or so. But any chance I had to watch it, I did and loved it. So always a special place, in my heart for Star Trek, and playing the game is a lot of fun. Brings back some of those old memories, nostalgic-wise. What else? Something that nobody might know. I had mentioned this before, but when I was younger, and I guess even to a certain extent still today, I had a learning disability. I don't read or write very well at all. In fact, for a long time, I was extremely afraid of public speaking, things like that, especially if it had anything to do with reading. Like, my worst fear in the world would be talking to a crowd with a teleprompter. That'd be a nightmare. And so it's kind of interesting because with that in mind and thinking about what I do now for a hobby, which makes me happy, I have fun doing, it would be extremely terrifying to even think of that as my younger self. But I just, it's just one of those things. We all have problems or challenges like that, and you get to a place where you just lean into it and you say, what, it's just not going to make any difference anymore. And that's what I did, not just in streaming, but somewhat in work and previous jobs that I was at. It just really wasn't an option. And I can remember I worked in the defense industry for a while. I have a degree in electrical engineering, and it's kind of weird because now I do garage doors, but so I'd be in the office, I'm having to write emails, and one day I was just like, I don't care. I'm just going to ask the guy next to me, hey, how do you spell whatever, and it was kind of a joke ongoing, but by just, not worrying about it and embracing it, I was able to kind of work through that. And it's always still kind of in the back of my mind, but that's probably that one thing, that holds me back sometimes mentally, internally. I try not to, but I know I've mentioned that before here and there, but if you didn't know, now you know.
Went a little bit more in depth onto that. Like, I don't think I've ever heard you say about, because you said it was a disability.
That's what they that's what they classified that's what they classified it as. And I can go into a little more detail on that, because in hindsight, really, I didn't like it at all. Reading, that is, and writing. And in hindsight, I think it was really, I don't want to say laziness, but it was like I wasn't interested in it whatsoever. Because you could give me like an article about something that I really enjoy, and I'll read it to myself, and there's not a problem in the world, but you give me something, a book assignment or just, some school assignment. And I think it was a lack of personal discipline to say, okay, I need to just do this. It was difficult for me, and spelling especially is difficult, but the reading aspect of it, a lot of it I think is probably, personal discipline really at a younger age like that to a certain degree. The spelling part of it is just, the English language is jacked up. It doesn't make any sense. There's rules, and then except for when there's this other rule, and then except for when, none of those rules apply. And that's not how I'm wired. I was very, very good at math, things like that, because it all makes sense. There's a calculation to it. With spelling in the English language, there is not, and I find that difficult.
You see what Yavi said there? Speaking of garage doors, Chamberlain and the batteries they use.
Just unplug it, dude. It'll stop beeping, and you don't need it.
You don't. So again, of course, so captains, now you know, me and McStud work in the same industry. So it's garage doors. And it's funny that you mention you have a degree in
electrical engineering,
and then here you are doing doors. I hear that I've heard that over the years so much with like garage door technicians, people in the office. You know, I went to school for X, and now I'm here doing doors. So in the line of work that we do, it's sort of,
I think it's more than that. And this will go totally sideways, but I'll just give you my quick thoughts on it. We were all, and to a certain degree even now, taught and told, I guess, that you need a degree in order to succeed, you know, in today's workforce. And that's true to, you know, in certain things, if you're going to be, you know, I don't know, work at NASA, doctor, lawyer, some of those things. But in hindsight, you know, the vast majority of us do not need degrees. We need marketable skills, you know, and the trades was something that was never, you know, an option. You know, who wants to be a plumber? Well, plumbers can make, you know, over $100,000 a year. I have a friend that has a degree in graphic design and in criminal justice, and he works for an AC company. Because he doesn't like office work or any of that kind of thing, you know, but he was told when he, you know, going through high school and stuff, that's what you got to do, you know. And that's one thing, you know, I'm constantly talking to my kids about, and I'm going to put them in some vocational schools, you know, before they're, you know, graduated and stuff, so they can check out welding and, you know, and different things like that. If I have one that's, you know, a valedictorian and scholarships and, you know, and is going down that route, I'm not against, you know, the whole college thing, but problem is, you know, there's so many people that go to school, either don't finish or do finish, don't end up using it, the vast majority of them, and then they're saddled with massive amounts of debt, you know. And it's kind of a shame, but unfortunately that's just the world we live in at the moment. But yeah, I hear that story all the time across the board.
And you know, for me, it's after high school, it was just supposed to be a temporary job, and then it just sort of cascaded. When 2 employees left, I got stuck in a dispatching entry level, and then it just kind of snowballed into that, right? And here I am still in the door industry. But what I wanted to know is how you started in the door industry and why we call you the Garage Door Tycoon.
I don't know why you guys call me the Garage Door Tycoon, but so I actually, when I graduated high school, I was working at a restaurant I was a host while I was in high school, and then once I got old enough to serve alcohol, became a waiter. It's at a nicer steakhouse. It's probably one of the funnest jobs I've ever had in my entire life. The restaurant industry is a lot of fun. When you're younger, that is. And then after that, you know, I just kind of bounced around from job to job, you know, doing what most people do after they graduate, and, you know, just taking the next best thing I could. And I'd started going to school. I was doing tech support for, was it HP printers? And my dad had actually got a job at as a supervisor at one of the larger garage door companies here where we live. And so he, you know, said, hey, you know, you can make really good money doing this stuff, you know, come learn a trade. So I decided to go ahead and do that while I was in school. So when I got my degree, I went out and I got a job in the defense industry. It was a company that did phase match cables, wire harness, mostly for like radar systems, guidance systems, things like that. And so I quit the garage door industry and went and worked for this company. I really enjoyed doing it. I was an applications engineer. I got to, you know, fly around the country and stuff, mainly to Raytheon locations were my main clients. So I spent a lot of time in like Andover, Massachusetts, and El Segundo in California. And I did that for a couple years. And I decided I always been, you know, I was one of those people. I always had a plan to like, you know, I'm going to try and, you know, start a business doing this or doing that, you know, and most of it, I never actually did it. It was just always like this idea and, you know, make up logos, but never actually did it. And so my wife had actually suggested me one day, this is when, you know, the internet was becoming more, I don't want to say more popular, but the uses of it were expanding exponentially, you know, in the late 2000s. Craigslist had came out. A lot of people were selling things on there and stuff. My wife was telling me, you should put ads on Craigslist for doing, side jobs for garage doors. And so I ended up doing that, and the phone started to ring, and started getting busier and busier doing that. And it finally got to a point where it was like, okay, am I going to quit my job and just, do this? And it was probably about a year, 2 years, year and a half, let's say. I just had my first kid. My second one was on his way. In hindsight, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I mean, that's really scary, but so I quit my job. It was a good job, and I just started doing that full time, and never really looked back. There was times where, it's slower, or, I had used my mortgage to, buy parts, for jobs that were coming up. And, it was a little touch and go at first, because this was like right in the middle of, the economic crash in 2009, 2010, 2010. My first kid was born. My second one got on his way about 9 months later. But anyways, so, we just started doing that and pushing it. And there's a couple times I thought about, should I go and, get my job back there or whatever. But, what I realized right away, and I think you can use this on anything, be it, YouTube content creating or anything else, is that, I learned that if you just don't stop trying, you really can't lose. You can do anything you want to do. Might be hard. You might hit rough times here and there, but if you just push it and push it and push it and don't stop, it'll just, keep going. And so I did that. And, today I have a fairly successful, company that I run. It's not like huge. I'm not rich or anything like that, but, I'm comfortable. It's good job security. Every house and building here where I live has a garage door on it. And, just work hard, treat people right, and you can really succeed at anything you want to do.
The next thing we want to get into here, of course, now is the Star Trek talk. So I'm going to ask first, sort of, how did you get into the Star Trek, and sort of how has it kind of guided you? I don't want to say guided you, but like sort of help you in where you are now with your content creation.
Sure. So Star Trek in general, like I said, growing up, I was born in England. I lived there until I was 8 years old. And they actually, I don't know if it's still this way, but they used to charge a TV tax. And my parents, they weren't into that. And also my parents I was raised Pentecostal, and they just decided they didn't want a TV in the house. They didn't like, a lot of what was on it and stuff. And so we just didn't have that growing up. And I remember, I forgot why we were there, but it might have been in between moving houses. But we ended up in base housing. It was like temporary base housing for like, I don't know, not even a week. And I remember the original series being on. My dad's like, oh man, Star Trek. I was probably, I don't know, 5 or so. Yeah, 4 or 5. And I remember seeing, the ships, and I have no idea what even happened in the show. I can't even remember characters. I just remember the ship, I'm like, that is so cool, Mm-hmm. And right before we moved back to the States from England, this was like 89 or whatever. Next Gen had just came out, and I remember my dad had picked up this magazine. It was splashed across the cover, and he's telling me all about, the original series, and this is the Next Generation. And immediately, as a child, I was like, this is cool. We always had computers growing up. I don't even know what they were called. The oldest one I can remember is like a 386, but we had some other stuff prior to that. And so we played video games and stuff. I wouldn't even call them that today, but, so I was always into the tech stuff. My dad was in that. He was in the Air Force. That's why, we were in England and stuff. And so, that whole kind of thing was just, super cool. And, so we moved back, and anytime I could get a chance at anyone's house, and that was on, I would want to watch it. And, I was, basically hooked from that point. We'd moved around a little bit when we came back to the States. My dad, he ended up being a Pentecostal pastor for a while of a church. And then we moved to California, and we were living with my grandparents for a little while we were in transition. And at that time, Star Trek: The Next Generation came on like 3 times across a couple different channels, and it was like amazing, and so watched that like crazy. Then Voyager came out right before we moved to Arizona, and those were kind of some hard times for our family. My dad had got laid off in California, and so we were in transition, moving to Arizona. and watching that show. And I think that show kind of has a special place because it was, at that age I was probably, I don't know what, I was like 10, 11. I didn't have my own bedroom or, even a house for almost a year. We were staying with, friends and stuff while my parents were, trying to get back on their feet. And so I'd watch that. And, like I said, it's kind of corny, but they're lost. They don't have their homes, and I don't know. When I think back, it just reminds me of like that time, which was, kind of a hard time, thinking back, not, having a place and things like that. So, I watched through all that. Deep Space Nine obviously had what was out. Or did that come out after? I'm getting mixed up and came out before. And so, hooked on it, watched them all. Enterprise, came out. Was a little disappointed in the whole Xindi thing on that. But the last season of it was great. STO came out, and my wife bought me a copy of the game in, I don't know, whenever it came out. I got the hard copy. It's sitting over on my desk here somewhere. And I never logged in or tried it. And at the time, I was just starting, the garage door company. I didn't even have a gaming computer or any of that, so I don't know why she bought me it, but she did. And I didn't have a way to try it, and I didn't have anywhere near the time. I mean, I was working, when I was working at the defense company and, starting the business, I mean, I was working 7 days a week. It was, even if I had a gaming computer, it wouldn't get used. There just wasn't time, especially for an MMO, right? And so I didn't play it, and probably around 2015, I started having a little bit more time. I got an okay gaming computer I got put together and decided to try it out. Tried it out, got through the tutorial, was completely lost. I'd never played an MMO. I always played, real-time strategies, Command and Conquer, Homeworld, things like that, first-person shooters, that kind of thing on console and stuff. And so I gave up on it and was playing some other games, and found that YouTube had walkthroughs of like every single thing you could possibly think of. So I'm like, I'm gonna try STO again. So got back into it, figured out how to slot the next mission after the tutorial, and once I figured that out, I was just hooked, man, and almost probably hooked in a way that wasn't healthy, at least not for my business and everything else, because I mean I went in hard, dude, on it. But luckily I made sure I got that under control before it became a problem. And that was probably 2016, 2017. And, basically played hard since then. Recently I've started exploring other MMOs. A few years back, I, started playing SOTOR and some other things like that. But, the whole MMO thing was completely foreign to me. And I think that's probably what kind of hooked me so much, because it's just this living social, game, whatever it may be. I also wasn't real familiar, and I guess, this is relatively new, your free to play model with your microtransactions. And I've mentioned this a few times, in the past, I'd buy a game, it's $50, and I'd play the game and I was done. The concept of continuing to spend money in this, not real place was crazy. To me, I'm pretty conservative, like with my money and stuff like that. And so I played free to play for a long time. And, I'd get a ship here and there, birthday, ask for, a gift card or something like that. And it wasn't until, COVID and, we're not out spending a bunch of money. We're saving, a lot of money because restaurants are closed. And I think at the time, was it the 10th anniversary? I think it just came out. And that was the first big purchase I bought. And it was well worth it too, by the way. But, so I bought that. And even now to this day, I'll buy, a ship or a pack here and there if it really kind of rubs me the right way. But even still, I just, it's hard. I play Warships and a couple other games, and I'll spend some money here and there. So I think I've been converted, I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. It's free. If you don't want to spend any money, you can play. A lot of times, there might be some gating in it. I generally don't play games that are free that are gated, where you just can't progress or something, unless it's at least somewhat reasonable. I mean, I understand, game companies got to make money. I mean, otherwise, why would they do it? I'm not going to fix your garage door for free. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, so I mean, that's how I, found Star Trek in general, and Star Trek Online, and kind of brings us up to date with kind of where I am in general in terms of, gaming.
Nice. Okay, so before getting into the little bit more detail in the CC question, I wanted to do a little quick fire question series with you. And I'm pretty sure you know what's coming next. So the first thing that pops in your mind You just let it out. Right? So I'm going to ask you your favorite X.
Okay.
Ready, sir?
Do I have to say her name or?
Well, it's just more like what's your yeah. So we'll start with your series. What's your favorite series?
Favorite series? It's a hard one, but I'd have to say Deep Space Nine.
Ooh, very nice, very nice. Okay, now going with the series. Favorite ship?
Favorite ship. So I'm gonna have to probably say the Defiant.
Oh, very good. Wow.
Or the Enterprise D. That's a hard one because it's kind of like, what am I? Because I'm thinking to myself, and I joke with my kids, like, what if I pull up to school in this ship to pick you up? Would it be the Defiant or would it be something more luxury like the Enterprise D? Anyways, we'll go with Defiant. I just had to pick. Right.
And if you had to pick, yes.
Yeah. Add a holodeck, it's sold. Good.
Done. You can put it on anything. So, favorite captain?
It's definitely got to be Picard.
There you go. How about first officer? Oof.
Yeah, I don't want to be it's not cliche, but I mean, Picard, Riker, I mean, you just can't beat it. The swagger, the leg over the chair. I mean, there's just nothing that really quite tops that to me. So, I thought number 1 did pretty good in Strange New Worlds, but I haven't got to see enough of her yet for her to dethrone Riker. So,
and it can change, right? Because of all the stuff that's going on. So it's always a fluid list to me, at least to me, at least. Okay, so that was your first officer. How about Helm?
Helm, I liked Paris, to be honest. Yeah.
Good choice.
Yep.
Tactical,
definitely gonna have to go with Worf.
Okay. Science.
Science, I'm gonna go with
Oof.
I don't know. It's weird too because I'm thinking, who is the science officer in Next Generation, and for some reason I just have this blank.
It wasn't really dedicated, I think. It
right.
was sort of like,
there's no blue shirt other than the Doctor.
Like Data fills that role in my opinion.
But he's second officer. But I don't know.
No.
Now that I think about it, who are some choices?
Well, pick the one that, if you had to, that blue shirt.
Yeah, when I think science, I think Spock, really.
Spock? Well, there you can't go wrong with Spock, right? Okay, so engineer.
Engineer, definitely O'Brien.
Ooh, second one for O'Brien. Medical.
Doctor for sure.
From Voyager?
Yeah.
From
the Dr. Bob?
Is the Bob, Dr. Bob? Okay, so this is a new one that I haven't asked. Your favorite Borg?
My favorite Borg? I don't remember what they called him, but I really like the one that from Voyager that gets infused with the Doctor's holo emitter.
Oh.
I can't remember his name. Basically, Super Borg, with a conscience.
We're gonna see that.
Here. Yeah, I really liked him.
Was it?
I liked him for a lot of. Was it one? What was his name?
It said one. There you go, one.
Yeah, I liked him for a lot of the same reasons I like Data, actually.
Yeah, no, I think he did a really good job. I think so. There you go. Okay, so how about favorite episode?
Favorite episode? That's hard. There's a lot of just really good ones.
Stands out to you, that grabs you, that you had to just moment.
It's tough too. I used to watch all the series and then get done and rewatch them again. Ever since I started playing STO, though, I don't do that anymore because I'd rather just go play.
Yeah.
So it's harder to keep it fresh in my mind. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many. I really like the one where, and forgive me, I don't know any of the episodes' names with the exception of a few.
You and me both.
But I really enjoy most of them that have Q in it, like especially the last episode of next generation. I also really like the one with where Neelix and Tuvok are melded together, or I don't know what to even call that. And there's that struggle between, is that a whole new life, and separating them and that kind of thing. I thought that was really good. Yeah, I mean, just right off the top of my head, I would have to say those two. I know I'm missing one, and I just can't think of what it is.
Tuvix.
But yeah, right off the top of my head, it would have to be those two.
That's
Tuvix, yes. He deserved better.
that was quite the episode. It's memorable, that's for sure, because it actually had a dilemma in there. Okay, so this is where I kind of wanted to ask this question and really kind of dig into this, because you for me personally, I remember meeting you on your YouTube channel and pointing me towards the Discord so that and all that. And that's kind of how I sort of started interacting with you. And as a content creator for STO, I want to kind of ask how it has been for you from the beginning up until now.
In what way?
In sort of in growing, and how you've started from 0 to where you are now to 10,000. And congrats, by the way, still on that. That's
thank you. Well, it's kind of interesting because I live streamed on Twitch for quite a few years. That's where I met Nick. I don't know why I did. I just was fun. And there wasn't a schedule, there wasn't a plan. It just, every night we'd get on and just play, and we just live streamed it. I really enjoy making overlays and all these other different things, and the logos and all this behind the scenes stuff. So I don't know that I would really count that time, because it was literally just jacking around. I mean, there's no plan or anything like that. I would really count it from the beginning of last year. Excuse me. I don't have my mute button close. From last year, so it was 2022. So beginning of 2021 or the end of 2020, I decided I wanted to, have a plan and work on, building a channel on YouTube. I already had the channel. I would post some stuff here and there. It was more of just, it was a good run. I recorded it and I put it up. I had done some other just kind of off the wall stuff where I took, an older Dell computer and had basically refurbed it and put it into, a nicer gaming case. It was a build I put together for my wife, budget build basically, and I recorded that and put it up. I'd figured out a way to adjust the wiring so you could use it with a case. I made another video for that, and they actually did really good in hindsight, which is kind of weird. But it was, I always thought, if there's something I can't figure out or I don't know and I can't find someone that can tell me, that's a perfect opportunity to figure it out and then share that with people. Because if I couldn't find it and it was a question I was asking, then there's definitely other people that are asking. And so if if you're interested in making content for whatever, if you can identify things like that, it's just going to work. But leading up to the end of 2020, I decided, I want to go ahead and try and, build this channel up. And so I, was doing my homework, research, looking at things. I do a lot of marketing and things like that with, work in general. So some of that kind of, there's some overflow into this. I mean, it's all the same thing, right? I want clicks, or I want someone to pick up the phone to call me, and people need something in one way or another, be it, a broken garage door or information about a game or entertainment or whatever. Right. And so I looked at, okay, what could I do? And, my first thought initially was, well, are other people doing it? And I realized right away that didn't really matter, because, there's all kinds of content creators and we can all do the same subject, but we're going to deliver it in different ways. We're going to have little nuanced differences to how we do things. And, sometimes I'll be looking on a game and I'm trying to figure something out and I'm watching videos, but they're just kind of skipping over that one thing that I need, that's in it. And so I made a commitment to myself that I would do one video a week and do that on a schedule and not miss one. And I went and did that. Sometimes there's an extra video that I would throw in if there was a lot of things happening, especially with doing a lot of the news stuff. But basically, I just consistently did one video minimum a week, and I I didn't miss 1 week at doing it, and the persistence basically just paid off, and I think a part of it is too is, I'm not the best player in the game. I'm not the, the meta high end or any of that kind of thing. I just a dude that plays the game like everybody else. And so I try and approach, the videos and stuff that I do from that standpoint. I'm also, I don't have every ship. I don't spend tons of money on it. And most people don't do that either. A lot of people don't have the money to do that. And the game can be expensive just like anything else. And so again, I approach, the videos that I make from those standpoints as well. And it goes back to that. If I'm feeling that way or doing it that way, there's probably a lot of other people, that are doing that. And so, in the way that I approached the content was, looking at problems and questions that I had when I first started playing. I mean, I came into the game and left it for months because I couldn't figure out just the simplest things, like clicking the mission journal and selecting the next one and going to where you need to go. And so I approached the channel from, hitting it from that standpoint, for newer players or, just anything I couldn't figure out or, that, looking back and I think running the free to play account helps a lot as well, because I'm trying to make the most out of as, basically not as little as possible, but out of nothing without spending money. So that's helped keep me kind of grounded there, on top of having an account where I do spend money and I've had a lot of time to grind in it and stuff. So it helps with that perspective. But so that was kind of the, the direction I wanted to go, is just look at the questions that I had, try and look at, some of the problems or questions or challenges that people might have coming in new, or people that, are unable to spend a lot of money on the game, and try and offer, solutions and ways to be able to still progress in the game and do things that you want to do, or, just have fun, or just have that ship that feels good to fly. I mean, the majority of the, community is not going to ever do, the crazy super high DPS. It's a very, very small community. The majority of people want to do as good as they can. Nobody doesn't want to do DPS. I mean, we use that term a lot as, I don't even know how to describe it, but basically you must do DPS in order to pass a mission. You got to kill things, right? I mean, the game's built around that. And so all of us like to do that. When we go into a mission or a TFO, we want our ship to be powerful, and the nice thing about the game is the range on how powerful things can be and need to be is massive. So, you can go in on a budget level and still, vaporize things on an advanced setting and have a good time and not dedicate crazy amounts of money or time into being able to do that. And so that's the lane that I really kind of went after, and just being consistent about it from week to week, and trying to be as, it's not even trying. I mean, I don't script the videos. I've gotten complaints before because I tend to just kind of talk on. Sometimes I get a little bit off a subject, and sometimes I feel like maybe I should edit some of that out so it's cleaner. But I think having some of that extra in there, I think that helps sometimes with some of the nuances about the game, because it is somewhat complicated. And I think sometimes it helps in maybe hitting that one little thing that helps it click for somebody that's looking at it. So I try and, so the things that I've done to, try and be as successful as possible is, consistency, and making my videos and talking in them as I would, you in a Discord call that had a question about whatever it is. And I try and deliver the stuff in that same way.
I will say that the help that you give to your channel has been the same type of energy help you've given to me. And that's why, like I said, I wanted to do this, this one-on-one with you, because you are just super helpful. And the way that you have made your videos, is kind of the same way that, I do, but you're speaking to the viewer, to me. Like, you know what I mean? I get that when you're doing your content is, hey, and it starts with your thumbnail. Your thumbnail game is, I try to get as much help from you, even from that. But that's why I said I wanted to know that, because it comes across even in the relationships that around you. I feel you're just super helpful. You're there, and that's why a lot of people do come to your channel, because they don't know. And all the questions that you get on, I see your streams, the questions you get there, you know, and if anything, it's like a video that you've already done, and the way that you also direct the viewers on your stream is, yeah, I know what, I did that video, go check it out, you know, in the video archives, because you have a wealth of good starting points for a lot of people, you know. And I felt your struggle too, just starting. Oh my gosh, it was very overwhelming, but you break it down, especially each video topic that you do that you do is very helpful. And you know, when it came to sort of helping me as a content creator, that helpfulness really shone through in the conversation that you and I would have after. You know, you're just super helpful, super nice about anything. I can bounce ideas off of you in STO because you're super knowledgeable too as well, and things. And you know, I think for the most part, when it came to the growth too as well, I mean, let's be honest too, there was a hole there, right? For, I can't remember when did that happen, about a year ago?
Yeah, about 14 months ago. It was March, April.
Yeah, it was March, April, and that's kind of, you know, do you like the growth of your channel just went, you know, just exploded, you know. And I will say too, you're like super humble, like you're just so level-headed, and that's what keeps a lot of people also to be able to connect with you. And that is just that you're super level, and your goal was just really to help out, and that's, I think, one of the strong points of your channel. And it's you know, from where STO is going now, especially with new players coming in, they're going to get so much help from your channel starting out, right? And I've seen, and your demo record stuff too, your demo record game is pretty good. How long does it take you to do one video? I'll ask that question when it comes to demo record.
It depends. So sometimes I'll go in and so I'll just kind of give you a scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go in and I take a couple shots and the ship's not moving, and I happen to just park it in a place where the light's good, the background looks nice, there's not a lot of stuff happening, one side of it's just bare space, because when you have that, you can actually simulate the ship moving without actually moving the ship. So if you can start off with those, a couple captures that are, good, and just, you can go in and just map out your camera movements and stuff like that, I can knock one out. So first you have to go in a game and capture those instances. The shorter, the better, because there's not a way to rewind when you get into demo record. So once you capture, I'll generally jump around a couple different places, move the ship around, take them, and then I will pull up demo record each of those, and I'll map out camera paths, and then I'll record each of those. A lot of times I'm using the same instance recording. I'll just map out around the ship this way, record it, delete that, and then map out around this way or whatever, and then record it, delete it, and then move on to the next one. So if everything is I didn't try and get fancy and I was moving the ship, because mapping out the camera to go with the ship while it's moving and stuff gets to be a real nightmare. So if that's not involved, and all the the takes were good and easy to use, I can put something together, rough together, in probably a couple hours. And then once you get into post, then it gets weird all over again, because I go and try and find some music, and I'll have all these scenes kind of put together. But what I've been finding is it's easier to actually put the music in first and then match your scenes to that, because when you have that dramatic music hit, or there's like this constant changing, you want your scenes to kind of change and flow with that. If you just make them your video first and slap the music over it, it'll still look nice and stuff, but there's such a nuance to making it look really, really good, and it looking like, oh, that he did a good job, compared to like, that's amazing, right? And I'm not quite there to that's amazing yet. There's a couple that turned out pretty good. Like I think the interior one, I got a little cheeky with the name, but lower decks of the Enterprise D. I really liked like the end shot looking around 10 forward. It looks nice and smooth, and I faded out at the end, but I messed up and the camera stops moving right before it fades out. And most people probably don't notice that, but for me, it drives me nuts. But in that one, and then the one I did after that with the Akira, I started messing around with adding in sound. So on the Akira one, as you get closer to the ship, there's a ship rumble that gets louder and then quieter as you move away. I did the same thing with the Enterprise D interior one. As you get closer to the warp core and stuff, there's a change, not just in how loud it is, but if it's coming from your right ear or your left ear, depending on how you're oriented. And so like that one took me days, to get just dialed in. The video part of it was pretty straightforward because it's all just still and you're just moving the camera around a still area. But getting things to, switch from one scene to another with, a little bit of music or sound effect, it starts getting to be, quite a bit more, and you spend a lot more time trying to dial that stuff in. But it's like the rest of it, it's really kind of a twofer for me with, doing this channel and it being Star Trek. I love Star Trek, but I also just love, making the videos. I like it more than live streaming and stuff. I enjoy that post video editing and that kind of thing a lot. That's one of the main reasons I still do it. And then on top of that, I'm able to make helpful stuff. And so, the videos tend to do pretty good most of the time. So it's really like a threefer, right? It's Star Trek. I'm getting to do a hobby that I, really enjoy with, the video, the broadcasting and, the editing side of that. And then on top of that, I'm also being able to help people out that hopefully, will be able to learn things and move through stuff, potentially easier than I did, or, others that had problems with things. So, yeah, it's kind of the long answer. Anywhere between 3 to 12 hours.
Wow. No, and it shows. And because you've actually even had me play some of your demo record stuff. And it's great. I love the one that you did with the bird of prey. That one was really cool. That was probably one of my favorite, because the music kind of, you and I have talked about off stream, but like you really do want to pick the right music for it, and that one really does. That was the first one I really paid attention to syncing the music up with the scenes, and that one just went together really. Better than I could have hoped for, really. Some of this stuff, it's just luck. I'm just going for it, so it's not like some of them are not good. I got a couple I'll never put out because I watch it. I'm just like, this is garbage, but that one, I got lucky and things came together. I had the right clips kind of beforehand. That little battle scene, that was almost an accident. And I was able to just kind of tweak it a bit and it turned out really, really good. But it's not because I'm the best with demo record and stuff. I really especially on that one, I got lucky and it turned out really, really good. No, I remember us talking about just the time frame, so I wanted to kind of bring that out here. Now, sir, I want to be very respectful of your time. I know you got a very early day. We are at my time, at least 11:45, which I think is 10:45 for you. Yeah. So how are we doing for? I can do another 15-20. Yeah. And then that'll be probably my hard. Gotta do a few things before bedtime. Okay, no problem. There was only about. It's about 2-3 more questions I want. So when it comes, because you've actually answered some of them already, so gonna keep it at STO for a bit. What are the positives and negatives right now to you in STO currently? Positives and negatives in STO? Yep. Okay. Yeah, so positives are it's Star Trek. I think the space graphics, mechanics, there's nothing like it in terms of depth of builds and things like that. There are some other games that have some pretty significant depth, like Elder Scrolls is another one, but it's not Star Trek. It's not space-based. Space combat building in the game, I think, is amazing on every different level. I think the game is also very accessible for people that are brand new coming in and free to play. That doesn't mean free of time, though. So if you don't have either of those, then it's not going to be real, accessible very quickly for you. But there's nothing in the world that is. So it's just kind of the way it is. But if you have the time, or you're willing to,
spend the time over a long period, you can get anything in the game, you can acquire anything, do anything, with the exception obviously of the lifetime subscription, which isn't a big deal. So I think those aspects are probably some of the big positives, apart from it being Star Trek, that kind of set the game apart for me, compared to a lot of other games that I play. And I think that they continue to up their game on the ship design and the graphical nature of it. It looks great. I mean, and the other part too is that a lot of people don't realize that chat window, that's a command prompt. I mean, the amount of like ability and power in that chat window is insane. I mean, that's where you activate the demo records. And I mean, I don't even know the half of it, but I mean, there's just a ton of stuff that you can do in the game. And the fact that the game has a demo record function and that it's not an editor, but that tool built into it is insane to me. And that probably comes from the fact that there was the Foundry, and if that was still in, that would be a big thing on the list too, where I don't know if there's any other games like that where you can literally, they give you all the tools to make your own missions and content. That was really something crazy, and that's kind of a bummer that that's gone, but that's probably why we have the demo record stuff. So I think, apart from it being Star Trek, the accessibility, there's no gates in terms of content. You can play the game from beginning to end without spending any money, and the game is not hard. If you wanted to play the game from beginning to end on normal and not watch anybody's videos, not worry about builds or any of that, you could still play through the whole game, have a great time experiencing Star Trek and STO. So I think that's excellent. For negatives, I think the amount of content that's being added now is lacking. There's not a lot. If you're new coming into the game, there's plenty to play, so it's not a big deal for you at the moment. There is no designed end game built into Star Trek Online, and so when you get to a place where you're at played it as much as myself or you really have to come up with that by yourself. And so that's either Space Barbie, that's chasing the deeps, or a lot of times for me it's just putting stuff together. I want to see if it's going to work. I know from the beginning it's not going to break any records, and that doesn't matter, but will it be effective? Is it fun to fly? Does it feel good? Does it look nice? But you really have to come up with that by yourself. And if I was a solo player, that I probably wouldn't be here still, if I'm being totally honest. So the social aspect of it, I think, is what probably holds a lot of people at that end, quote unquote, end game. But there's no high end dungeon raid / kind of things that give you higher end gear or any of those kinds of things. There's no incentive to play on Elite or anything else. And after getting into other MMOs, that's something that is huge in these games. And that doesn't exist in Star Trek Online, and so I think that's probably one of the negatives. The other, I think, negative is the loot box system, and we've talked about this like crazy. I think it's terrible. I think that whatever your chances are, or whatever it is, if they're terrible, if they're good, the fact that they won't tell us what they are, to me, is obscene. And so I will not open boxes. I would advise everybody not to, except for Martin. Joking. But seriously, I mean, it's every other game that I play, there's drop rates that's listed. If you go buy a lottery ticket, if you go buy a scratch ticket, it's borderline unethical to me. And so for me, that's a big problem. And so I just I don't engage in that. But I think that covers the negatives that come to my mind. It's pretty well balanced to me in terms of that. I mean, comparatively speaking to other games that I play, there's not anything really kind of over the top one way or another that's really bad. And I think there's a lot of good things about it, with the exception of the loot boxes. I think that those are bad, really bad.
Yeah, it's like, you're right. We've talked about it so many times, and it just feels like they're just cornering themselves to a certain point. That's the only thing that they can do to make money, which is, there's something that came to mind when you talked about the Foundry. Could you imagine if they gave a sort of, I'm not sure what the right term is, like a battle pass for something like that? Actually putting us as players, especially the ones who want to create content like that, stories, pay Cryptic a certain amount to have access to what, and you said it, like kind of dev tools to really make a story mission.
Yeah.
You know, that I probably would do something like that, you know, and having that leave was, yeah, for me was a huge negative. And, you know, with that said though, so where do you see now STO in the next 5 years?
I see it pretty much in the exact same place it is right now, which is the same exact place it was 5 years ago. The player base is stable and has been stable at basically the same numbers. You have a lot, you know, new players. You have enough new players coming in as old players leaving, and a lot of the old players show back up here and there for new story content and those kinds of things. So it kind of balances itself out. So I did a video on this a while back, or I think it was one of the live streams that I did and turned it into a video. But I went and, you know, I did a good amount of homework, getting, you know, a good idea of what the numbers look like over time. And really what we've seen is that, you know, for the last, since it went free to play, there was a massive spike during that transition. But since then, it's basically been a stable game, not going down, not going up, you know, for the last, you know, what, 9-10 years now. And, you know, I think a lot of times, you know, we have these criticisms and they're legitimate, but I've really come to believe that, you know, the dev team and the studio, they don't believe anything's wrong with it. And if it's the way it's supposed to be, there's not anything wrong with it, right? We're really talking about things we would like to see and things that we would like to see changed, right? Putting aside the bugs and all of that. I mean, that's kind of a whole different, you know, conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see any reason why, you know, anything would change a lot. We'll continue to get, you know, story missions here and there. We'll get a lot of ships. We'll get lock boxes. We'll get the same model that we've had for the past, you know, 8 years, because that's been proven to be a stable model that just works. And so, like it or hate it, that's the way it has been, and it's the way it is now. And I don't see any reason for them to want to change that. Because they, you know, they look over those numbers in the past, and, you know, with inflation and all the other different things, you know, their numbers are, you know, dollar amounts are going up, you know, in line with that. So my assessment is that, you know, in the next 5 years, it'll be basically where it is now, but more ships and some extra, you know, story content.
Do you think with the acquirement of STO from Embracer Group, because I've been hearing some things from other channels about the Embracer Group has been so positive, but from that standpoint, of course, you know, another entity taking over some, do you think there's going to be some sort of influence on that? Even though we know that they'll probably, like what you said, stay the course of what they're doing now, what are your thoughts on Embracer?
Yeah. So, and I mean, I'm just totally, you know, this is my opinion. I have no, my guess, let me say it that way. I mean, number one, I don't know. Here's what I think, because I struggled for a while with thinking about why did they buy Star Trek Online, essentially. I mean, that's the largest game that Cryptic Studios has. They have Neverwinter, which is close to the same size, but I think STO is beating that out now. Apart from those two, there's not a lot of other, you know, big hitters or anything like that. And so, you know, part of me was like, okay, well, they got to come in and at least maintain the status quo, or look at feedback and make it even better, you know. And when I say make it better, like advertise, you know, try and draw in new people, because they don't do a lot of that. It's always really kind of surprised me. I've seen an advertisement here and there, but you know, if there was just more advertisement and, you know, and things like that, try and hook in new people, you know, I feel like we would see, you know, a lot more growth in the overall player base. But I don't know that they would really change anything. But really what happened is Embracer bought the Star Trek IP. That's what they bought. And so the question is, what are they going to do with that? Are they going to continue to operate STO as long as they can with that licensing, or are they going to use that licensing that they now own to build something new or something different? But those are really the two choices that they have. You know, they didn't buy a bunch of games. They bought the Star Trek IP, and that's huge because Star Trek is huge right now. There's a ton of stuff coming out, and there's, you know, and that's going to continue. So, you know, my assessment at this point is that is what they bought when they purchased Cryptic Studios. And so really the question becomes is, what is their plan for that IP? Is it to continue STO, and are they just happy with the status quo? I don't believe that. I believe that they're either going to try and do something to increase the revenue from the game. And I'm assuming that if they went that route, it's not going to just be more of the same. They would have to do some different things. Or do they have long-term plans to build a new MMO or some new Star Trek game? I think it's one of those two. I don't know which one it's going to be, and maybe I'm just totally wrong, but they didn't come in and spend however much they did, tens of millions of dollars to buy a 12-year-old game that's built on a proprietary engine that has a lot of issues. That's not what they bought. They bought Star Trek. Was what they bought. So again, the question is, what is it that they're going to do with that?
Yeah, and I've always said that, I've always thought in like quarters financially. Like I knew for sure, I thought if anything, the first half of the year, so the first 2 quarters of the year, 3 quarters, nothing. But now that we're here and going essentially into the 3rd quarter, nothing. You're right, nothing has really happened. So I think in the next, I'd say year or 2 is gonna dictate any changes, if there is any, from Embracer.
Yeah, I think we'll see some. I have no idea what they'll be, but I mean, let's think about the changes that we would see, and let's start with the easiest things that we would see. Okay, a new website. We're seeing that now. We're a year and a half in, right?
Yeah.
So anything else that's bigger and new, and more meaningful. I mean, based off that timeline, I don't think that it's reasonable to think that we would have already seen that if we're just now over the past couple months seeing the new website being fully released, and it's not even fully there. So I think over this next year, 2023. I think that'll really, by the end of that, we should probably have answers to all these questions. What is going to happen? Is it going to be just continuation of the status quo, which is fine? Are they going to actively try and, promote the game and build on the game? Or are we going to see maybe it start to wind down and, maybe something new being developed? But I think over probably next year, we'll get a little better insight or clues as to which direction, we're going. Or, they may just keep the status quo and on the back end be building something new. I mean, that's definitely possible as well. Their revenue looks great. I mean, compared, looking at everything that's public that we can see, they got plenty of money to be doing that just with Cryptic. And with Embracer Group, I mean, they're a very large company, so they could easily be, designing some new things. So I don't know. I mean, those are just my guesses. But I think going through next year, we'll have a little better idea of what we're going to see.
Yeah, and I hope always for the best, right, for Star Trek. So last little question I'll ask you, sir. So is, what has Star Trek taught you? And after that, feel free to also drop some nuggets to us on what you're working on the channel.
Okay. I was thinking about that question earlier today, and I used to think about that question a lot more when I was younger, 20s, 30s, and stuff like that. As you get older, you really, you find yourself, to me, getting into your late 20s, into your 30s, and, you really start to kind of find yourself as a person, what you believe, who you are. And as you get older, that changes still some, but a lot of it's more kind of reinforcing, and, you still are learning and changing. And, I think Star Trek, and I think most people, have a similar view that grew up watching it, it was, I don't want to say, morality, but it really was, I feel like for me, it molded me into a person that, I play devil's advocate with myself on everything I look at, every single thing. I try and look at things from multiple perspectives. I certainly, even things I, adamantly end up disagreeing with, and while I will make choices and form opinions that I, will stick to and stuff, I always think it's important to try and understand that other side. And a lot of times, I don't want to make it seem like, it's because I want to be, so tolerant of everything, but a lot of times it has to do with getting your way, right? I mean, a lot of what, in life, you're trying to get that job, or you're trying to have the best video, or you're trying to, whatever it may be, and understanding, the other opinions or the other sides and the other coin, side of the coin, really helps you further your goals and those kinds of things. And at the same time, if you're careful about it, it makes you a more fair person, I think, in the way that you internally, look at things, and hopefully that also comes out in the way that you treat people. But I think Star Trek in general, I mean, you look at Picard and his speeches and Data and that innocence, and and you look at all that kind of play between them, and it's this example of the basic human condition, and trying to be understanding and tolerant of things that you don't know about, and a lot of this stuff's kind of up in the ether in terms, because it's hard to really just kind of say it did this, this, and this, but those kinds of concepts and things, came from Star Trek for me, and helped, form me into, the person that I am, which I'd like to think I'm a pretty good person. I'm not perfect. I every now and then do things I regret, in different ways, and looking back, but I think, Star Trek in general, again, like most of us, it really kind of helped us, find who we are, and find who we are, and hopefully in a place of, someone that you can be proud of, or at least look at yourself in a way where, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe this, where, we always need to be working towards being better. And that can be in making YouTube videos, being a better dad, working harder at work, whatever it may be, And so whenever I think about Star Trek and the things that, they were going through, it always was that. It was trying to be better, trying to improve yourself, or trying to understand either yourself or other things. And I think that's probably what influenced me the most when I think back. It's not like one thing or this one thing that they said, but it's kind of that overall, kind of concept that really the next generation for me is, really kind of just summarizes, right? I mean, when most of us think back on that, especially if you're in my age group, it's, you think of that and you get this feeling and this thought in your mind that you can't exactly describe. I mean, we could have this long conversation going on and on about it, but we all know what that is, right? That speech that Picard gives about something gives you goosebumps, and it's not just because it sounds nice, it's because it had this meaning, whatever the thing was. And it wasn't every episode, right? I mean, they did a good job at not jumping the shark with that, but they were these well thought out things. And it reminds me of a Stargate episode where in the episode, there's a TV show that is, like Wormhole Extreme. And it's basically a spoof of the show itself. And at the end of it, they're interviewing the actors in the show. And there's a famous quote by somebody, I can't remember who it is, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but it basically goes on to say that, sci-fi is a way for us to examine, the human condition, and look at that in a way it's detached from our reality, but still applies to it, right? So we can have conversations about potentially very, sensitive subjects, but because we're doing it in a context of an alien planet that doesn't have anything to do with us, we can talk about it and be introspective, and I guess I'll leave it at that. I mean, that's really what Star Trek has done for me, in growing up and watching it, is to be able to have an introspective look and a detached look at situations that I can, in a lot of cases, try to look at them in an unbiased way, in order to form my opinion about it. I will end up being biased because I do form an opinion, and I will fight you on it depending on what it is. But I'd like to think that it's helped me be able to get to those opinions in a way that are as fair as possible to myself and to others.
Wow, that was deep. We're clipping that, and we're gonna. That's like a Picard speech and a half here from the mixed head.
Try not to cry.
No crying here. So, Mixed, before you go, thank you so much. Not just for doing this, but just for everything. Seriously, personally, on my, from me, you've helped me not only with my content, but you've helped me personally. You really have, and I am glad to have been able to not only meet you, but also get to know you and be able to get to talk to you at times, and for what it's worth, Captains, I'm not that obsessed with him. There's a little bit, but not that. that he said. The thumbnail, though, I will say that was chef's kiss. But Captains, I have put in the description on YouTube below McStud's YouTube channel. So if you have yet to subscribe, aka get your command code verified, please do so. And also, lastly, sir, what is it you're working on that we can sort of look forward to?
That's an interesting question because I don't know. So I'm working on more
perfect.
videos. I'm looking at working on. Well, I've started some. I do kind of these outlines. I'll never show you them because they're mostly little pictures and misspelled words, but it helps me kind of remember what I want to do. But I'm going to be working on some very, very basic stuff for new players. Like you just started the game, and I mean, it's going to sound stupid to a lot of people that have played, but I think it'll really help some players get into the game, past the tutorial. So there's going to be some of that. The new stuff's going to continue. I'm definitely going to be leaning into the demo record a little bit more. I really enjoy doing that. And then I'll be working in some other games as well. So I've been doing a little bit of the warship stuff on stream. I like to think I'm okay at the game, but I understand how the game works very well. So I'll probably do some beginner's guides for that. And we're talking more mechanically speaking, like you start the game and then what do you do? And what are some of the best lines maybe to start with? Some just basic, stuff for, questions that I asked, how does the ship XP work for the next one? Things like that. Mm-hmm. Again, if you're someone that played the game, it's kind of no duh, but the no duh stuff that's the gold, because that's the stuff most people just gloss over because it's no duh, but there's tons of people that you start the game new. Why would you know that? So I'll probably lean into that more. And long-term, my plan is to mix in Star Citizen and probably go pretty heavy on that at some point. Wow. It'll probably be out right before I retire. So that'll be perfect timing to really, push it hard. Mm-hmm. Joking. But that game I've only played it for about 2 or 3 years now, and the progression on what's being added and completion, I think we're seeing some huge additions being put in. I know a lot of the back-end tools they were creating are starting to get finished, and so we're starting to see a lot of the patches get quite a bit of stuff added in. So just the last 6 months, I mean, probably we've seen more stuff added in to the game than we did the 2 years before that. So I'm hoping Squadron 42 comes out beginning of next year, and hopefully the Persistent Universe at least a year or so after that. But even if they just released it the way it is right now, I would play the crap out of it. When it works, and it works a lot better than it did, there is nothing like it, and it's amazing. If you like The Mandalorian and you want to live like in that universe, that's where it's at. But that's my goal long term, semi long term for the channel, and kind of where to go with it. Part of also Star Citizen, just real quick, is the game is beautiful, and the videos that you could make, just like demo records, quote unquote, in that game are phenomenal. So I will definitely be doing that, regardless of if it's ever actually released.
So we're gonna have some oof moments. Is that what you're saying?
Say it again.
We're gonna have some oof moments.
Yeah.
There's just some oof moments. Again, Mr. McStud, dude, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time. Again, I want to be respectful. And Captains, he does not have an OnlyFans for you.
Not yet.
I have. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Well, maybe.
But before I go, let me say thank you to you as well for having me on, and in general for the community. I was trying to tell you this before, and I couldn't really kind of get the words together, but we were talking about your value to the community in general, and it's like a safe space where almost every night I can come here on schedule, onto Twitch, and I know Triz is here. It's like home base, and that's it sounds like a little thing, but it's huge, where I sit down, got the kids in bed, I'm gonna play some STO or some warships or whatever, and I got you up. It's like that. It's that radio show you can just count on. Being there, and that's huge. I think for for the community, having that that consistency, and then yourself obviously being a, just a legit person that, we don't get somebody, you guys don't see anybody different on stream than we do on, in Discord. Triz is Triz, and it's nice to have that authentic, reliable person. And I know I know for a fact there's people that, go through hard times, and, having someone there like that, it sounds crazy, but I mean, that's huge. And I've heard stories, not specifically about you, but, where, people were down, out, depressed, mental problems, and having that safe space, that, that place they can count on is huge. And so, I want to say thank you, for me, because I enjoy your content on a nightly basis. And I think there's probably a lot of other people out there that have gotten a lot more out of it than I have, that are, in ways that, we probably hadn't thought of. And that's real important.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that. Thank you. No, it means a lot coming from you. And it's, again, there is just mutual love for not only, of course, my fellow content creators, but just captains. Like I think we're here just to enjoy Star Trek for what it is, and it's just great that we have been able to find, like-minded captains, right? And that's kind of what makes, and you said it earlier, the whole social aspect of an MMO. That is what is making STO for me, right? And keeps me coming back. And even though we're just doing paperwork nightly, I remember the one picture that you showed me, like, see, you're up on screen while we're eating dinner. Like, so your family knows the amount of trolling that goes on here is just absolutely.
It was the one where you had the little laptop screen with your face on it. I remember that. We were having dinner. I'm like, oh, TriZander's on. Let's watch this.
No,
my wife's like, that's the Canadian guy, right? Does garage doors? I'm like, yep.
And captains, again, Mrs. Mixstud even approved that thumbnail. Okay, so there is approval there. But again, sir, I know you got to run, so thank you so much. I know we've gone over, but the time allotted that we had. But thank you. No, seriously, yep. I do appreciate it. So,
thanks for having me, and everybody have a wonderful evening.
Mixstud, good night, sir.
Have a good night.
Mixstud mapping. Bye, sir.